how do you master a programming language like JavaScript? That's a question that I asked myself a number of years ago when I decided I wanted to really become the best JavaScript programmer that I could possibly be. So I worked hard, I learned, I practiced, I wrote a lot of JavaScript code, and I got there. I got to a point where I felt like I was comfortable with the whole language. I felt like I could build the projects that I wanted to build in JavaScript, and I could also learn new frameworks, new libraries easily because I understood the language to a deep level. So I want to share this with you, and that's why I've created this course. And I'm calling my course the Fundamental Principles of JavaScript with me, Marek, your host. I want to tell you a bit about how I arrived at this idea for this course, and specifically why I'm calling it Fundamental Principles of JavaScript. And this name, I actually chose this very deliberately because it really describes what I want to achieve with this course and what I want to give to you. What is this content that I want to give to you through my course? And the first word in the title is fundamental. So what does that mean, right? Okay, what does that mean, fundamental? Well, fundamental really means foundations. What are the foundations of knowledge that you need to master something like JavaScript? I like it to think of it like this. This is what you might call a foundation when you're building a house. What do you need to do first? You need to build a foundation. Everything gets built on top of that. With something like learning a programming language, well, it's pretty similar. You first need a foundation of learning, and then you can build on top of that. Then you can learn more, you can expand your knowledge, you can build it up. But unlike a house, I actually think it's more like you're building a bunch of stuff. You're building a little city even. This is how I kind of imagine all this knowledge that you could be accumulating in JavaScript. This is all JavaScript that you're accumulating. Maybe you're learning different techniques, different libraries, different sets of skills, but all of that rests on top of the foundation. And this is what a career in JavaScript could look like. It could look like first learning a few things from a few different libraries, a few different even areas where JavaScript is used. And I'll tell you a bit about my story. I mean, at some point, I really got interested in Node.js. So I already knew some JavaScript, but then I realized, hey, there's lots in this particular area. In particular, Node.js, there's lots there. You're building servers, you're building APIs. And so I built up on that knowledge. I built it up, and eventually, I learned how to create APIs, how to use libraries like Express, for example, and all kinds of back-end server stuff. And that was a lot of fun. I built that on top of these foundations. But at the same time, gradually, I was learning some front-end, which is a whole other topic and the whole set of skills there as well, right? So I learned things like Angular. Oh, yeah, I spent a bit of time working with Angular. And also, at the same time, I explored React. I actually ended up building even more in React. I went deeper, you might say. So I built a bunch of stuff on top of that foundation. And, this is basically the path towards becoming a full stack developer, that full set of skills. But this is a bit of a tangent because the whole point here is that it doesn't even matter. Like, all this stuff is beyond what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the foundations. I want to talk about the foundations that enable you to go and learn all of those other things. And they also enable you to decide what you want to learn. That's the great thing about starting with the foundations, is that you may decide throughout your career to explore the language in all kinds of different directions, and the foundations are always going to help you. They're always going to be useful for you. So that's what I mean by fundamentals. That's why I'm calling this course the fundamentals. But there's another word in the title you might have noticed, is the word principles. And I also chose this word deliberately. And I want to tell you why I say this, why I say it's about the fundamental principles. So what is the word principles? What do we mean when we say principles? you can mean two things actually. There's two different ways to look at this word. So let me share the first way is to look at it as first principles. First principles are essentially the building blocks of learning something. If you're learning math, you're going to start with first principles, the basics, and then that allows you to build stuff like proofs in mathematics. In programming, well, the first principles are these mental building blocks, or another phrase I like to use is mental models. And that's because all of these other features of programming are built out of these building blocks, and the mental models allow you to just to have kind of a model of the understanding of how these things work inside your mind, so that when you encounter things, when you encounter some code, when you encounter some problems that need to be solved with code, then you can use these mental models that you already have in your mind. They could be visual models, they could be like how you view the structure of the code in your mind, for example. And these are these first principles that then allow you to solve larger problems and build larger structures out of them. But another kind of way of interpreting this phrase first principles is the laws of JavaScript. What are the laws of the world of JavaScript? You could think about it as the laws of physics, actually. I mean, the laws of physics govern the natural world. And those are the first principles that help you then understand how the world works. Well, in JavaScript, there are these laws. I mean, there are these things you can say are always true, for example, and that allows you to then build an understanding of the whole world of JavaScript. So that's what I mean by first principles. But that's not all. There's another thing I want to say about principles. There's another way to interpret the word principles, and that's with the phrase guiding principles. So now we're not talking about these fundamental kind of underlying principles, but rather principles that guide you towards what you want to do. And I see this split into two things. One is principles that guide you to learn JavaScript. What are the best ways to actually learn the concepts in the language? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about. In what order should you learn some of these concepts, and how do you build up the knowledge in a way to, like I said, to build a foundation? The other set of guiding principles is the principles to write JavaScript. So once you're actually sitting down to write some code, can you use these principles to guide you towards writing code that is, that's good, that's understandable, that's maintainable? And so that's why I think these principles that I'm going to be talking about, I think they help you on both things. They help you to learn JavaScript, and once you're actually writing, they help you to write better code as well. So those are the principles. That's what I'm going to be talking about. So if you're going to be joining me for this course, then you want to know about the goals. What are the goals that I want to achieve with this course? In other words, what goals can you get out of this? Well, it's pretty simple. I'm going to write it here in what I feel is the best way to encapsulate this. I want to help you get closer to JavaScript mastery. Now, okay, mastery, it can sound like a kind of a big word. I mean, what does it mean to become a master at something? I don't think it's necessarily something as big or as complicated or as difficult to attain as you might think, okay? So mastering JavaScript means, it kind of means two things to me. First of all, it means really understanding the concepts that are in the language. And second of all, it means being effective at writing JavaScript. That's it. So if you can work towards those two things, then you are working towards mastering JavaScript. And I think it is absolutely attainable. Okay, you can absolutely attain JavaScript mastery, and the formula is simple. The formula is you work towards it, you work on understanding these fundamental principles, and the other part of the equation that I believe in is you have to actually produce. You have to write code, because that is the best way to practice. That is the best way to get better at something. It's to do it a lot, to write a lot of code. But underlying that are the principles, and that's what I'm going to focus on in this course. Okay, here we go. So who is this for? Well, this is what the path looks like, right? We start here at the starting point. Anyone who is starting to learn JavaScript has to first start with some basics. And where is this path taking us? Well, hopefully it is taking us to a point of mastery. All this in between, well, this is my target audience for this course is you. If you have some exposure to the basics of JavaScript, then you're ready for this course. And as long as you're not already a master, I think you will have a lot that you will be able to get out of this course. So at any point in this process, no matter what really your level of exposure to JavaScript, no matter what your level of experience, I hope to make this valuable for you. But I will say, though, I will say that there are some non-goals for this course. I like to talk about non-goals as just a way to clarify, well, we have some goals, but what is this course not going to be? It's not going to cover the basics. So I am assuming that you have exposure to some basics, the minimal basics of JavaScript, that you understand the basic elements that are in the language, what basic code looks like. I'm not going to be covering those because that's just outside of the scope of the course. We're going to be going a little bit beyond the basics right away. So no basics. We're not going to get bogged down in those things. What else is it not? It is not a tutorial. We're not going to be this is not going to be in the format of a tutorial. I'm going to be going pretty deep into these fundamentals, but that's not what it's going to be. It's not going to be a tutorial. It's really going to be a course where we learn, and we're going to try to apply what we're learning. But it's not what I would call a tutorial where we're not going to be building a useful application in this. We're instead going to be learning the fundamental principles that will then allow you outside of this course to apply them in actual useful applications. And the other thing that this is not, it's not a course that's going to touch on any frameworks or any libraries. This is really the philosophy of the fundamentals of a language, because I want to give you the ability to then go and pick whatever framework, whatever library that you're using in JavaScript, and then apply these principles there. But we're not going to be talking about any specific frameworks or libraries, because it's all about the fundamentals of the language that you then can use anywhere. Okay. All right, so that's it for my introduction of the course. I hope that gives you an idea of what we're going to be doing, what we're going to be talking about, and what it will give you. What are you going to get out of it? So join me, and I hope to see you in the next video where we're going to start jumping into specifics. I want to start right away with some of my favorite fundamental principles of JavaScript, and I'll see you there.